Hi everybody, how's it going? This is Jordan Clark, lifelong Northwestern fan, pretty prevalent on the Northwestern boards as well. Basically, I just want to take a couple minutes and I had a couple people asking me about the Northwestern scandal currently going on right now, my thoughts on that, how I took it as I'm currently a student, but also as a fan from out of state. Kind of the condition right now of Northwestern football, where we're looking going forward. Just kind of talk for a couple minutes about that, and thank you all for tuning into this. I appreciated it. So first of all, obviously, Pat Fitzgerald it starts with him. A staple of the program for 17 years now, had a record of over 500 with Northwestern in the Big Ten Conference. A former linebacker, and really the heart and soul of that team. I'm not going to get into the scandal itself too much here because none of us really have all the information. There's a lot of hearsay. We had a whistleblower. We have certain football players and staff members that have commented saying that they knew about the hazing that was going on within the program, a lot of it sexual in nature. But we really didn't have any names besides the leaked whistleblower name that went out there, and that's a whole different story. What I really want to talk about, though, is what this impact means for the Northwestern program, what I would like to see in the future, what I'm seeing online, on the boards, with people talking around the Northwestern program, and kind of go from there. So first of all, Pat Fitzgerald, fired Monday. It was big news. He first started off with a 2-week suspension, as I'm sure you've all read by now. They reevaluated the situation after the Daily Northwestern, which is the Journal's program there at Northwestern, came out with a story, and he was then consequently fired. The whole way it went down was absolutely atrocious. The president, the athletic director, did a terrible job. The athletic director was overseas on a vacation, did not come back in time, came up with some bogus story about how he was in an airport and he couldn't get a flight back, so he decided to just do a Zoom call to the players about the firing from the airport. Just ridiculous. Dr. Gregg and Schill there didn't do the kids any favors. The firing was pretty abrupt. A lot of the parents and a lot of the kids had to learn about it through social media. Do I warrant the firing? Probably. I'm one of the ones that thinks Pat Fitzgerald he is Northwestern football. He is the reason that they were what they are right now, what they've been the last 10, 15 years under his leadership. Was the firing warranted? Probably. He had to have known about some of the hazing. Do I think that the whistleblower directly went to him and talked to him about the hazing? No, because he definitely would have put a stop to that, I think, at that point. But yeah, he had to have known about it somehow. I won't even get into his assistants. But it's a shame that that's going to be the fall of Pat Fitzgerald. Obviously a staple for the program, did a lot of great things for the program, put the program on the map, was a big contributor with the new on-campus practice facilities, also going for the $800 million stadium that they're about ready to think about constructing with the Ryan family. It's a shame, but I'm going to look forward. Coach Braun is the interim head coach for the 2023 season. I thought that was a great choice. And I might be in the minority here as a Northwestern fan, but I'm excited for Coach Braun. Do I think the expectations for this year are high? No. Do I think they're higher than a lot of people are giving them credit for? I do. As long as there's not a mass exodus of kids in the next, I think they have 25 more days to enter the transfer portal without penalty, I think Northwestern's going to be better than people think they're going to be. Looking at their schedule this year, they got Rutgers week 1. That game becomes a lot harder now. I thought that was a winnable game. I'm going to be at that game. I thought that was a game Northwestern was going to win, especially coming off of 2 bad seasons at 3-9 and at 1-11. I thought Fitzgerald was going to right the ship. Coach Braun, first head coaching job, also his first job inside a Power 5 conference. That's going to be a tough one now, but I look at 3 games. I look at UTEP week 2. I think Northwestern's going to win that game. UTEP's pretty good, Conference USA. I like Northwestern there, and of course they have Howard. That is week 6, October 7th. But again, that really depends on if there's not a max exodus. I'm going to kind of go through Northwestern's roster a little bit too going forward. But man, it's going to be a difficult task for Braun. He's going to go to Big Ten media games or media days next week. Bajakian stays on as the offensive coordinator. You have 4 other brand new position coaches, but you do have some retention with McGargle as a linebacker coach. You get McPherson back again as a secondary coach, I do believe. You get the special teams coordinator back as well. But I also have them winning a couple Big Ten games. I would not be surprised if they beat a Purdue, or they beat an Iowa, or they beat an upset in Minnesota. Those are all upsets. I don't think they'll be favored in those games. I think Northwestern could be 4-8, ideally. I don't think they're going to be any higher than that. But man, a lot of 0-12, 1-11 talk going on right now. The only one against Howard. I think they're going to be better than people think they're going to be. But it also depends, again, if the kids stay, if Braun can supplement or get his defense the way he wants it. I don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to be the head coach and the defensive coordinator, or if they're going to. I also heard rumors that they might bring in other coaches as well to try and ease the gap. But we'll see. Speaking of the gap, before I get too much more into like the talent level that Northwestern has this year, a couple of the coaches I see for next year for the full vacancy getting named. Some interesting ones. Obviously, the one that everyone's talking about is Mike Kafka. I love Mike Kafka. He's the offensive coordinator for the Giants. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I don't think, especially if Greg is still here and not fired, which he should be, I don't think they can bring in anybody that Fitzgerald coached. I also heard Randy Bates' name mentioned a couple times. I just don't think the tie-in's going to be allowed to happen. And also, Kafka could be a head coach in the NFL next year, for all we know. Another interesting two names that I've heard, I don't think one's going to happen. One could. Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator now in Alabama. That seems to be everyone's favorite right now, the number one favorite. Got no problem with that. Did a great job at Notre Dame. And also Brian Hartline, the wide receiver coach for Ohio State. That name got thrown around a lot. I don't think Hartline leaves Ohio State. I think Hartline, the only problem with that, and someone actually tweeted this to me, and I love it was actually a pretty good tweet because I mentioned Hartline. Sure, as soon as that Ohio State job opens up, Hartline is flying to Columbus. So I can't see that one. Of course, you have a lot of the old heads. You have I can never say his name right, so I'm going to say the old head coach at Navy. You have Shaw from Stanford. You have Clawson from Wake Forest. You have Monken from Army. A lot of guys with really good. They do a really good job of institutionalizing their program and kind of studying the waters. Paul Chryst was mentioned quite a bit to try and come in maybe this year or next year to try and do the same thing. I think Northwestern, for me personally, obviously the scandal is important and you have to make sure you get in there, make sure the hazing is taken care of. I think it's going to be. I mean, if you come out and embarrass the kids the way they've been embarrassed, and rightfully they should be if this was going on, I think the main thing that we need at Northwestern here to not have a 10-year just down period of winning one or two games every year has to be a coach that can recruit. I've seen Lovie Smith's name mentioned quite a bit. Lovie Smith cannot recruit for shit. I think it's got to be a young, charismatic coach. Braun, I like this year. I like Braun this year because the reports are that the kids really enjoy Braun. They did think he did a great job. And I heard rumors that a lot of kids were going to transfer if it wasn't Braun. Can't have Bajakian. Bajakian has been with Fitzgerald for quite a while now, and also Bajakian probably should have got fired. I think Bajakian knows the writing's on the wall there. And then it can't be anybody else inside the program. So I love Braun as the interim. Do I think he's the long term? Probably not, depending on how this year goes. But a couple other names too that were interesting. You have the coach for Tulane. Sure, maybe. Obviously, Coach O was mentioned for a little bit. I think there was kind of a false report from a different outlet saying that Coach O was interested. He then came out and said that he didn't not have interest, but he never said he had interest yet. But there's a lot of names out there. But my three, the ones I'd love to see, obviously Kafka is everyone's favorite choice. I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't mind seeing Reese from Alabama or from previously of Notre Dame, and I like Tulane's coach. Also, Matt Campbell from Iowa State's been another mention. He'd be a good one, but I don't think he leaves Iowa State for this. All right, so real quick, I just want to go a couple minutes over the roster, like what we're going to see this year. Man, if Ben Bryant stays, the transfer from Cincinnati, I know the big reason he came, though, is because of Fitzgerald, so that scares me a little bit. And A.J. Henning stays, the transfer from Michigan. Again, I don't know if he's going to stay or not, though. He's been on Twitter putting some sad faces as soon as Fitzgerald got fired. You got some legitimate offensive firepower. Now, the Big Ten's going to be good this year. I don't think Northwestern is favored in any game, but Northwestern, I think Northwestern's going to have that. I hope they have that mantra. I hope Coach Braun and Jakin can instill this with them. Us against the world, screw it. We're supposed to be 1-11 or 0-12. Nobody believes in us. Let's just do some trick-ass plays. Let's have fun. Let's open up the offense a little bit. Jakin, please, for the love of God. You also get Cam Porter back as your running back. The offensive line's not great, but Kurt Anderson has done really well at developing talent. If they can stay injury free, it's not deep either. And then you got some receivers that are all right. We heard about how good Frank Covey IV was. We heard about Bryce Kurtz maybe taking the next step with Bryant, but with Hyman too, I hope I'm saying that right. Hyman and Tyrus, but also in the backfield. Man, if Northwestern could open up their offense a little bit and allow a little more running space with those guys and stop being so damn predictable on first and second down, they'll score some points. I mean, you got Brendan Sullivan as like a guy that can come in and run the ball a little bit in a wildcat situation as the quarterback. I think Northwestern's going to be okay as long as there's not any transfers offensively. Can't be any worse. I mean, they were ranked, 112 or something like that in the country last year. I think they'll be all right. You get your punter back. Kicker left, but your backup kicker probably was better anyway. Can't get any worse again special teams-wise. Defensively, you have a stud secondary. I hope to God, I think I read this, but I hope to God that me as a coach as well, that Braun goes to a 4-2-5, because that's what Northwestern has to do. You have two stud linebackers. You have Gallagher and you have Mueller. I know guys like Metz that can play maybe like an outside linebacker or dog position, but you don't have the D tackles. So a 4-2-5 where you can bring those guys down the box to support that. You have pretty decent DNs with McLaughlin, but man, I hope he goes to the 4-2-5 so we can utilize all 5 of his D-backs this year. You got Hollis back there, you got Coco Azuma back, I believe Lewis was the other one at the safety. You have some studs on defense. You have 2 pretty good linebackers. You have a pretty good DN combo. And then we get the defensive tackle. As every Northwestern fan knows, besides Najee Story, there is not much there defensive tackle-wise. But Braun, coming from the FCS, where he was the coordinator of the year, I think twice, has 2 national championship appearances. I know he won it at least once as the coordinator of the year in 2021. Have fun, Braun. Just let it loose, bud. Just let it loose. But circling back now, do I think Northwestern's going to be as bad as people think? If they can, they're not deep. If they can stay healthy and they don't leave, mark this door. I think they go at least 3-9. I think they upset one team. I think they beat UTEP, they beat Howard. I would not be so shocked if they go 4-8 and upset a second team. Besides that, the schedule's pretty hard. I mean, at Illinois is going to be good. Purdue, throw up. You never know. At Wisconsin, that's a tough game. Iowa, maybe. Maryland, maybe. I mean, maybe, depending on injuries. At Nebraska, that's going to be a tough one with Rule. Howard, like I said, I think that's a win. Penn State, I don't even want to talk about them. That's going to be not great, hopefully. Hopefully like last year anyway, that'd be good. Minnesota, be a tough one. They're good. Duke, at Duke, forget about that. UTEP, I like, and Rutgers, you never know. So 3-9, 4-8, that's my prediction for the year. Last thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to kind of tie back to the beginning again, is what scares me the most as a Northwestern fan, besides obviously the kids transferring and trying to get in formality here and getting maybe some administration out of the way so that Northwestern can kind of do what they want to do and kind of redevelop this program, is the recruits. So far, 3 recruits have decommitted, and I completely, fully understand that. A 4th one, their best recruit out of California, just got an offer from UCLA. That's pretty scary. It's free season now for these D1 schools going after Northwestern recruits. I'd love to see the class. I think there was 14 kids, and I'm sorry, Northwestern, because I very much may be mistaken on that. I hope they can just keep maybe 5. If you can keep the 5 core kids, maybe Braun can go out and maybe recruit a couple more throughout this season. It's not going to be any better than that. I mean, the reason a lot of these kids recruit, obviously, is they recruit to the Coach Fitzgerald. But if Braun can kind of show some magic of this season here and can become a recruiter and use the recruiting tools that he has, I'd love to see a couple of those kids stay on. And it gets really hard for Northwestern after that the next couple of years, depending on who their next head coach is with the NIL deal. Northwestern's never good at the NIL, and with the academic standards, with the transfer portal. It's never going to be Northwestern's bread and butter. I'd love to see them start over. I'd love to see a new head coach next year that has that moxie, that can recruit these younger kids and kind of redevelop this program. Northwestern's is going to struggle the next couple of years. 4 or 5 years from now, though, they have a golden opportunity, a brand new stadium, hopefully, a brand new coach with some fire. Get the recruiting back up there. Keep some of these kids that are younger right now, maybe give them some playing time this year, and you never know. But obviously, it's not a great time for Northwestern right now. They were ranked 78th in the country with a couple of different rating systems in the summer. It's obviously going to fall from there. Offensively, though, man, they were 108th last year. Can't be any worse. Open it up. Jakey, and have fun. You're probably not going to be here next year. Defensively, they were, against the run, they were 109th. Can't be any worse, man. Throw some blitzes, Braun. Have fun with it. I wish Braun the best of luck. I'm interested to see if they're going to try and bring in another coach this year to kind of oversee things and help Braun out a little bit. I'm really excited for the head coaching next year to see how that goes. But beyond that, it's a tough time right now for Northwestern fans. The scandal came at a very tough time. Again, I fully am against any hazing, any sexual acts in the locker room or anywhere on campus or at Kenosha like they did up in Wisconsin. It just sucks that this came out. I know Pat Fitzgerald's a good guy. I've seen the testimony of a lot of Northwestern fans and former players. But still, it can't happen in your program, and you had to have known about it to a degree. I don't know if the Shreks list is true. I don't know if the whiteboard stuff was true. Who knows? Who knows at that point besides the players themselves? But there definitely was some sort of hazing that was going on, and it's just a shame that Pat Fitzgerald is going to be remembered. I wish him the best of luck. Hope he can bounce back on his feet, get a head coaching job in a couple of years. Coach Braun, best of luck to you, man. Just go out there and, like I said a couple times now, have fun. And for the Northwestern faithful out there, if you watch this video, let's just not panic right now. We know these next couple years are going to be tough. They were going to be tough anyway. We're 4-20 the last 2 years. But let's let Braun have a year. Let's try and keep as many of these kids as we can. Get a head coach that can recruit. 4 or 5 years from now, with the facilities we have and the academics that we have, this team might be all right. It's not doomsday, like some of us are saying. It's over forever. But again, the last thing I'll leave with 3 things I'd like to see. We got to keep Ben Bryant and AJ Henning. We have to keep them on the team. I know Braun and Pajakian talked with the kids. It was emotional after the meeting, after the firing of Fitzgerald. Hopefully he got to them. And I'd say another thing too. I'd be upset. I would have zero problem if any of these kids decide to transfer. None. The administration did not do a good job for them. They obviously came and committed to Fitzgerald. If they leave, you cannot be mad at the kids for going for another opportunity. And then just steer the ship this year, Northwestern. Just have fun, man. No one's expecting anything out of them anyway, so hopefully they can develop. They can get some young kids some reps, and it's going to be all right. All right, so that's just kind of how I feel right now. It's just a middle-of-the-run Northwestern fan and a student online of Northwestern. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, go ahead and leave them below. I appreciate your time. And go Cats.